All right, and welcome into the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast. It's that time of year again. Yes, the NFL is officially back, baby, and we're going to help you make those lineup decisions in this primer episode with our must-start players. I'm your host, Seth Woolcock, and I'm joined by the author of the primer himself, my brother from another mother, your brother from another mother as well. He's Derek Brown. D-Bro, how are you as kickoff inches closer and closer and closer?
I'm feeling good about kickoff. I don't know how I feel about gaining that many family members that we're discussing, Seth. But I guess I'll deal with it. Thanksgiving and Christmas should be interesting to begin with. So, just hope we got enough turkey and all the trappings for everybody. So,
well, I'm glad you're here, man. I'm ready to go. I'm already starting to put the menu together for Sunday. I got some turkey sliders on there.
Better not put sauerkraut on there or I'm walking out.
No sauerkraut. Buff chick. Okay. Are you buff chick dipped guy? Buff chick dip?
Always.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. That's like the American food these days. So I'm glad you're there. And D-Bro, before we jump in, can you give everyone a quick breakdown of what the primer is and where they can find it if they haven't checked it out so far?
Bro, it's always at fantasypros.com. It lives on the homepage almost the entire week as soon as it goes live on Thursday mornings. This being week 1. I always try to get it out a little bit earlier, so when live Wednesday morning, but it will be live every single week. Thursday a.m. bright and early. And yeah, dude, I mean, this is me walking through every single game, trying to give you every statistical nugget, matchup, all parts and pieces of what I think is important. And, and for everybody that's been reading the primer for multiple seasons, we did kind of condense things like, I don't need to go out and tell you to start CeeDee Lamb or Saquon Barkley. Sure. I don't need to go out and tell you to start Derrick Henry. So we did make a must-start section to kind of condense some of that. Because, look, like, you don't need me to tell you to, like, anything out of my mouth or on paper or digitally, as it were, to tell you to play any of those players. So really just saving people time. Because, look, there's 30,000 words in this thing. I'm going through every single thing, leaving no rock or stone unturned for trying to help people with lineups. But the top elite players, you don't need my help to know to play them.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to tap into that big, bald brain of yours today in this video we got going on. Quick shout out to everyone who's tuning in either on the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel or the audio feed. We see you. We appreciate you. Thanks for helping us continue to grow throughout the offseason. If you enjoy this type of content, please give this video a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribing to the channel if you're new. We don't want you to miss a second of the coverage of this season. Also, if you want a chance to win a signed Jamar Chase signed Bengals jersey for free, courtesy of our friends over at pristineauction.com, all you need to do is head to fantasypros.com/contest, complete the form, and either A, download the Fantasy Pros app, B, leave a review for the podcast, or C, follow us on X, Instagram, or TikTok at Fantasy Pros. The more actions you complete, the more entries you're going to receive, and we will be announcing a winner right here on the podcast. So make sure you turn on those notifications so you don't miss that. And Derek, let's go ahead and jump right into the quarterbacks, where you have an interesting QB who's been faded throughout draft season you think should be started in week 1 on Sunday afternoon. Who do you have?
Dude, I know we talked about the entirety of draft season about don't draft Jared Goff. He's going to regress, the passing touchdown. People, danced around all the Ben Johnson stuff and new coordinators and things like that. We are into the regular season now, so we need to change and not listen to our priors. Looking at Jared Goff, man, I think this is just sets up as a wonderful matchup for him. I mean, first of all, when you get pass funnel defenses, which I think the Packers are going to declare themselves all season as, teams had trouble running on them. I know they lost Kenny Clark, but I still think they are going to field probably a top 12 run defense this year. So this all sets up that the Lions are going to pass. They need to pass. And looking at the secondary, like, tell me what corner, Seth, are you worried about on the Green Bay Packers depth chart? Anybody? Like, you're worried about Keyshawn Nixon?
Former kick return champ, yeah.
Yeah, like, dude, like, he gave up a 66% catch rate last year. You worried about Nate Hobbs, 96 passer rating in his coverage. Javon Bullard, who couldn't stop anybody, legit, 84% catch rate, 119 passer rating in his coverage. Or we're worried about a pass defense that, honestly, even before the downgrades of the secondary last year, weeks 10 through 18, giving up the 13th highest success rate per dropback and 9th highest CPOE to quarterbacks. We think that those numbers are going to get better in the year 2025 in week 1. Nah, dude. I think Jared Goff is going to light them up as long as the offensive line could keep him clean. And we know that, his pressured versus clean pocket splits are a real thing. As long as they can keep him clean, and which I'm not saying this offensive line is going to be top 5 this year, but top 10, that's not crazy. Good enough to sit there and, keep him, or at least keep the rushers away from him long enough to deliver short area targets. I think Jared Goff is going to be, I've got him at QB 8 right now. So I think it's kind of crazy that we have him ranked outside the top 12 in ECR right now.
Yeah, right now down at QB 17. So he is continuing to slide down rankings. And, you got to feel for the Packers because they continued to invest in that secondary. Eric Stokes was a first-round pick. Of course, they traded away Jair Alexander. They traded away 2 seasons ago Rasul Douglas to the Bills. So they've slowly been kind of, getting rid of a lot of these valuable secondary members. And I think Jared Goff could make them pay in week 1. And in a game that has one of the higher totals of the weekend, Debro, I think you're right on point here to be targeting someone like Jared Goff, who's probably out there on waivers in most leagues, I would say.
Oh, absolutely. If you waited on quarterback and stuff and you're, okay, do I play somebody like Dak Prescott? Do I play, and depending on when you're watching this, maybe that game's already happened, but do I play Dak? Do I play Brock Purdy? Do I play Bo Nix? All these guys with tough matchups this week, or do I play Jared Goff, who has a glorious matchup?
All right. Well, I love to hear that. Let's go to the running backs where no surprise who your first must start is of the season at the RB position. Shock everyone with this pick, would you?
I know it's going to be just absolutely nobody's going to see this. It's out of left field. They're not going to see this one coming. But the fact that we in ECR have RJ Harvey ranked as RB 27. And the guys we're going to be talking about on this video weekly, we're discussing running backs outside of the top 20 that really need to be in consideration for lineups. RJ Harvey definitely needs to be, man. RB 27 in ECR is way too low. He needs to be in discussion in that RB2 conversation. I think he's going to have a astounding week this week. Tennessee, and we're talking about a defense. We see all these turnover in defenses year to year and how good, or should we look into last year's statistics and say, is that really what you could project for 2025? They're returning a lot of the same personnel. So I think a lot of this can be stickier, where you're looking at a defense for Tennessee, weeks 10 through 18, they allowed the 2nd most rushing yards per game, 7th highest yards after contact per attempt. And we know Harvey is going to get targets in the passing game. They allowed an 81.1% catch rate to running backs and quietly the most receiving touchdowns in the NFL to opposing running backs. So Harvey, it's okay, is he going to get it done on the ground? Is he going to catch a pass for a touchdown through the air? Dude, I think he can do all the things this week. So I'm comfortable starting him as an RB2. Ranking him as an RB3 is way too low. I can't even wrap my head around that right now.
What do you think the workload split is going to be between him and J.K. Dobbins, who has been in camp for most of the summer?
I think it's probably 60-40 in the favor of Harvey. What we saw in the preseason is Harvey was playing, and this wasn't a J.K. Dobbins type of take, but we got to see Harvey's usage. So I think J.K. Dobbins is going to slot into whoever the other running back that was playing during the preseason. So Harvey was playing primarily on 1st and 2nd downs. It was when we saw 3rd down come into play where you saw another running back come onto the field for pass protection. So I do think Dobbins could also play a little bit on the early downs, take some of the early rushing load away from Harvey. So 70% of the snaps probably not going to happen, but in that 60% range, maybe 65%, depending on how game script goes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where I think Harvey's going to live.
Well, and that's a key word to use there is game script. And while I am very high on the Tennessee Titans, Cam Ward as a whole this season, I think week 1 against the Denver Broncos is going to be tough sledding, a lot of 3 and outs, potentially some turnovers, some YOLO balls thrown up by the number 1 overall pick, and that leads to a lot of chewed clock needed by Denver. So I do expect RV to also have a great week 1. Who else do you have in the running back department that is your must start of the week, Derek?
I think people need to give strong consideration in the flex to Jordan Mason. And I know that in some of this, and I will give a caveat to this, this is kind of a shot in the dark. We don't know what the exact split on this backfield is going to be.
Sure.
But just looking at people's options for flexes and depending on how deep your league is and where, what that looks like. And honestly, your team, if you drafted a 0 RB team and you're who am I going to roll out a running back this week? Jordan Mason was one of those candidates where he fit a lot of different builds, but he was also a guy that we're going to be in a lot of 0 RB teams. So I think he's a guy you could probably plug into it in a pinch as an RB2 on a 0 RB team, but a lot of like probably more of a comfortable flex for a lot of people. This all comes back to what I think his role is going to be in this offense. I think he's going to be the goal line back. I think if we're looking at a game that I think could get sideways pretty quickly, like I think Caleb Williams, everybody's really, really high on him at seeing what he did in the preseason. I think a lot of that's probably going to come crashing down in week 1 versus a Brian Flores defense. Right. So again, we go back to game script talking. If Minnesota is just beating the brakes off the Bears late, or they have a comfortable lead, like say they have a 10-point lead or 2 touchdown lead, something like that, they're salting the clock away late in the fourth quarter, Mason's the guy that's going to get these totes, and it's a wonderful matchup. So like he gets, say 12 carries and he gets into the end zone, you're going to be very happy you started him, and the matchup is good too, man. Like this Bears run defense only added Grady Jarrett this offseason. What he has left in the tank is up for debate. I'm not saying that he's not an upgrade, but a sizable upgrade. Yeah. I don't know if he can be that, considering Chicago we saw last year down the back half, 5th most rushing yards per game, 9th highest explosive run rate, 4th lowest stuff rate. So this all leans to, okay, like this is a tough matchup for JJ McCarthy in this passing attack. I think through the air, I think Minnesota should lean on their ground game to open the season in this matchup. And if they do that, Mason's going to have a good day.
Let's play a little Would You Rather with Jordan Mason real quick here, Derek. A couple guys who we know will be the starter for their team. Travis Etienne against the Panthers.
Mason. I have him ranked right ahead of Mason, actually 1 spot.
Nick Chubb against the Rams.
Mason.
Okay. And then Jerome Ford against the Bengals.
Mason.
Okay. All right. So it feels like, you're definitely pushing him well into the RB3 category and right there for a flex play. So Jordan Mason on Monday night, D-Bro's calling his shot. Before we keep it moving, wanted to remind everyone that you can dominate your fantasy football league with Fantasy Pros Premium, now available free for 6 months when you deposit and place your first wager on one of our partner sportsbooks. We know you're placing wagers, so make it count and get that 6 months for free. And this is the easiest way to get full access to our top fantasy football tools all season long. Go to fantasypros.com/premium to get yourself started. All right, Derek, we're heading to the wide receiver realm where you have a couple interesting names here. Let's start out there in Los Angeles, where they will be traveling to face the Chiefs in Brazil.
Hey, we're talking all this Bears talk. I had to acclimate myself to a word. I can't even talk right now. To where this player is. I'm going to talk about a former Bear and a current Bear in this spot of the video. But Keenan Allen, dude. I mean, wide receiver 61 in ECR is egregiously low. I think he is firmly in flex play territory. I will not be surprised, and this is not, I do not dislike this player at all. But looking at the coverage matchup, looking at the matchups in general, I will not be surprised if out of the gate in week 1, if Keenan Allen out targets Ladd McConkey this week. And I know a lot of people can say that's crazy, but if you look at the matchup, Ladd was not very good versus 2 high last year. Really, I mean, a lot of his production was versus single high. That's not what we're going to see the Chiefs play. Last year, they had the 2nd highest rate of 2 high, almost 61% of their defensive snaps. This all goes back to like, this is in Keenan Allen's wheelhouse, dude. Against a team that the Chiefs were ripped in half by slot receivers. And I think Keenan Allen, I'm not saying Ladd, I know where he played last year. I know he was predominantly slot. I'm not saying he's not going to get some time in the slot, but come on, dude. You don't bring a guy like Keenan Allen back into this offense and expect him to play 80% outside. We know he's going to get slot reps. We know he's probably going to lead the team in slot snaps. And Ladd is a guy that has more outside perimeter utility at this point in his career than Keenan Allen does. So looking at Keenan Allen, like the Chiefs gave up the most fantasy points per game and the 11th highest PPR points per target to opposing slot receivers last year. So I look at this as a fantastic matchup, both schematically and what you look at it corner-wise. So I think Keenan Allen is poised to have a really, really strong game. And in PPR formats especially, I think he is a strong flex play in week 1.
Well, with Trent McDuffie on the outside, likely going to see a lot of Ladd McConkey one-on-one when Ladd is moved out there. I think it's a strong play. I'm excited to see if Keenan Allen can kind of rekindle some of that magic that he had with Justin Herbert. Like, let's not forget, this guy was on pace to be not only a wide receiver 1, but a top 5 wide receiver the last time him and Jay Herbo were linked up. So excited to see it again in Friday night on prime time. And let's go one more receiver for you here. Maybe the shocker of the entire primer if you guys read through it this week.
All right, I know I'm going deep with this.
Deep.
And I know we're going really deep with this. But this is the shout out to everybody that's dealing with, 2 flex leagues, deeper leagues, 14 teamers, what have you. Okay. Or if you're in dynasty leagues,
DFS lineups.
This is yes, sir. If you're playing some single game, you're playing showdown. This is the captain du jour, people. All right. I built it up enough. Olamide Zaccheaus, man. I think that he is going to have a really, really strong game. If he truly is, and there's no storylines, nothing that's come out to say that he will not be the starting slot wide receiver and play all the snaps this week in week 1. I'm not telling you that it's going to continue the entirety of the season with Luther Burden on his heels, but I think that's what we get in week 1. And if that is the case, I think Olamide Zaccheaus is in for a really, really strong game, dude. And this is multiple different levels. Like if we want to talk about what he did to close last season, week 16 through 18, when he was a full-time player for the Commanders, 20% target share, averaged 68 receiving yards per game, 2.2 yards per route run. In weekly scoring, he was the wide receiver 6, 13, and 62. So in 2 of those 3 games, a top 15 wide receiver. I know it's a really small sample size, but also looking at the coverage structure here, Seth, and that's really, really like that, the corner matchup, and what Minnesota gave up last year all screams that Zaccheaus could have a really strong game. They were leading the NFL in too high rate, almost 64% of the defensive snaps. Last year against too high, Zaccheaus, 28% target per route run rate, 0.123 first downs per route run. I know this is a different team. That type of efficiency on a per route basis against this coverage structure is very notable. And then you look at what Minnesota did last year. They allowed the 5th most fantasy points per game and the 3rd most receiving yards per game to slot wide receivers. And then you go and you look at the corner matchup, and it's just as good. Tavares Thomas coming into the secondary is kind of worrisome. He's had good seasons throughout his career, but the last time we saw him as a full-time player, and for a corner that's a little bit older, he's not on the front 9 of his career. No. It is concerning, dude. In 2023, which he only defended 5 targets last year, so I'm not going to throw out that sample to people. But in 2023, this corner who was Zaccheaus is going to match up with for most of, if not all of the day, allowed an 82% catch rate and a 110 pass rating in his coverage. So if Zaccheaus is the full-time slot receiver, every data point I can find, Seth, says this dude is headed for a really strong outing in week 1. And I know it sounds crazy. I know it does.
I mean, it's definitely out of the box, and I'm not trying to glaze you up here, but I think all your data points point to a big day for Zaccheaus. And it kind of goes back all the way to the NFL draft show where you and I both were a little bit on the fade side of Luther Burden as a prospect because he's more of a manufactured touch guy. I could see them getting him involved in some end arounds, maybe some shuttle passes, something like that. But if you want a guy who's going to go out and route someone up from the slot, it's not Luther Burden right now. He still needs to develop that part of his game. Yeah. And maybe we see it by week 6, by week 7 after the Bears bye eventually. But I think right now Zaccheaus is interesting. I think you even have a wager on his over receiving yards, if that's correct, right?
Yes, sir. Last time I looked it up, his receiving yards were sitting in the mid-teens. And I slammed the over on that. And depending on where you're getting this, if you can get alt lines and stuff, I think he is a fantastic bet. Like if you're throwing parlays together, I really love where his stuff is at. And whether you want to hit this, like we get, I'm pulling up his lines right now, like live on Betting Pros. And this is how fast you can do this. Like I'm just pulled up off the rip, bettingpros.com. I mean, Olamide Zaccheaus. Seth, can I interest you in a plus 450 anytime touchdown line? Can I interest you in plus money over 2.5 receptions? Can I interest you in his receiving line at books right now has climbed, but it's still only at 20.5. Okay. Yes, and yes, sir.
Yeah, those are kind of my favorite D-Gen player props where it just takes 1 or 2 receptions. They get over that yardage mark, and it's a guy most people aren't betting on. So I like that. Derek, bring us home with someone who is close to my heart, a former Penn State Nittany Lion at the tight end position. Hashtag we are, baby.
I should have known you were going to work in the homerism here when I put this together, man. But yes, Brenton Strange, if you punted tight end, you're doing the whole streaming thing, you're looking at matchups. I'm not telling you like, okay, he's going to be a top 10 tight end, top 5 guy this week, whatever. Like, this all comes down to, if you were living in the low-end tight end one kind of phylum, you're like, okay, who am I starting this week? Is it Jake Ferguson? Is it somebody else? Who am I going to stream? Brenton Strange is a guy that's going to be available in a ton of waiver wires right now. If you're playing the streaming game, he needs to be in the conversation. This is a lot of different parts of pieces, man, but I think really just leaning on the matchup with this. Last year, Carolina gave up the 5th highest yards per reception to tight ends and the most receiving touchdowns per game. So looking at this passing attack, like, we kind of know where the ball is going to go, dude. Like, it's going to be a crap ton of BTJ. It's going to be Travis Hunter behind him. And then who's the third target in this offense? It easily could be Brenton Strange, man. Like, I'm not high on his season-long outlook and stuff like that. Maybe he can pull like a Zach Ertz type of run out where he gets a ton of targets and he just volumes his way to, like, you know, a top 15 type of season at tight end. But I'm telling you right now, like, he could have a very strong game in week 1.
Brenton Strange is someone I actually have quite a bit of exposure to, especially in the best ball streets, because when he got targets last season, he delivered. He usually does deliver. He's not incredibly athletic once he gets it. Like, he's kind of more of a fall down type of tight end. But at the same
Which is crazy. Like, tested out of the freaking, like, jumped out the gym at the combine and stuff like that. But, like, it's funny that you brought that up, because, like, seeing the difference between who are gym warriors and does that, like, crazy athleticism kind of translate to the field. Strange isn't one of those guys where you're like, you see him on the field, you're like, he's running away from guys. He's breaking tackles. He looks like Superman, but still athletic.
Yeah, and he had second round draft capital at one point. And as you said, like, we have Tim Patrick, who's come over from the Lions. Diami Brown's there, but it's no one that's really going to steal a lot of target share. And also, like, we don't know what the snap percentage is going to be for Travis Hunter right out of the gate. So it could open up some potential volume for Brenton Strange against Carolina on Sunday. So, Derek, fantastic job today, man. That is going to do it for us on this episode of the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast. Comment down below your favorite Week 1 must-start player. We want to hear from you. And while you're here, make sure you're smashing that like button and subscribing to the channel if you're new. For Derek Brown, I'm Seth Woolcock. Good luck in Week 1. Take care, y'all.